There we go. We're live.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the MCU's Bleeding Edge. I am Perry, and with me is Jeff Sloboda. He is one of those guys that just loves Marvel movies, loves the comics especially, and he's a great mind to have with us tonight. As always, I say tonight, but he's always around.
Thank you, Perry.
And also with us is Cyber right below me, and he is a big movie guy as well as also a big Marvel fan. And we are excited tonight to talk about Loki. But why don't I let the guys kind of talk a little bit about some of the stuff that they do a little bit? Maybe a quick little intro. And Jeff, is there
Yeah.
anything?
I mean, you can find me. I'm on a lot of different platforms. But basically, I go by a bunch of different names on different platforms. But the MCU's Bleeding Edge is the channel that we the three of us have. We're on a lot of different platforms now. I'm starting to really try to flip over a lot of my stuff over to the MCU's Bleeding Edge. So it'll be interesting. I think overall, you guys will be interested, I think, in seeing some of the platforms I've started to get the channel out onto. But basically, I mean, I do some other stuff other than just the MCU. I cover some politics and social issues and cultural stuff occasionally, and I do have another podcast and another YouTube channel called Night Owl Productions Presents. I'm a Rizzler along with Cyber and Perry now also. Cyber, I forgot to give you Perry's information for Rizzle. I don't know if Perry already gave it to you or not. But
No, I gotta send it to you.
what is it, Perry?
No.
What is it? Is it Perry's? What is your Rizzle called?
It's Perry's Rant.
Perry's Rant. Okay.
Yeah.
And you haven't made a video yet.
Original.
I subscribed to you already, but you haven't made any content yet.
Not yet. I'm still planning on how I want to do it because I'm deciding whether or not I want to do like me standing in front of the green screen and have like something going on behind me or not. So I'm trying to figure out what I want my shtick to be a little bit, but I'm thinking within the week I'll have first couple videos up.
Well, that'll be great. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. You got to subscribe me back so I can tag you on videos.
Oh,
I can't tag you on anything yet.
I'm still learning. I'm new to this. Be gentle.
Go ahead, man. You go ahead. You should bring up your new Rizzle channel, man. Your new MCU channel.
Yeah, so like Jeff was saying before, I also am a Rizzler. I've been on there about a little less longer than he has, but I did recently just started doing a new channel that is exclusively MCU content. It's called Marvel Studios Dimensions, and it is all about the MCU. It's going to be everything about the movies, but also it's going to be about the comic books because I'm recently started getting into the comic books more, learning a little bit more about the lore, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that new channel will be mostly all my MCU stuff will be on that channel from now on versus my other channel, which is called Movie Knowledge, which is all my movie content. I also have another channel on Rizzle as well that is called is all about weird facts that people don't know. It's called Unknown Facts, I call it. And it's all about that kind of stuff. So that's a pretty fun channel, too. I've enjoyed putting some content up there. I've done, like, several parts, different things about megalodons and so forth and stuff like that. But then also I am also a YouTuber, just like Jeff is as well, which is also under Cybernetic Shark as well, where I do movie reviews, parodies, and all that kind of cool stuff. So if you weren't already aware of that from previous live streams, listen. Just kidding.
Awesome. Yeah, and we're so excited to be giving a little preview to Loki. We have a few main points that that we definitely want to touch on. There's still so much like unknown about like what the show's general like premise is going to be. You know, like we get like the moving parts a little bit, but we don't really know like who the villain is. Like we haven't really gotten too much of that, and so there's questions on like the villain. A lot of people even if you're a comic fan, you don't necessarily know too much about the Time Variance Authority. So we're going to talk just a little bit about that, just to kind of like get our thoughts on how that might play out, because there might be those changes that aren't necessarily like 100% true to the comics. So we'll discuss those questions and stuff. But to start, me and Jeff were talking just a little bit earlier today, and I wasn't able to make it for the final episode stream for Falcon and Winter Soldier. So we were thinking for like 10 minutes we could just kind of go back and forth about that, and it'll give me a chance to give my thoughts on it. Cyber, I heard you were not too much of a fan of the last episode.
I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of just there was a lot of moving parts that did not get finished. Same thing with WandaVision. Same exact thing. Those moving parts just weren't completely finished that I wish they had focused on. They were a little too focused on, I felt, with the whole Sam thing, giving his giant speech like Captain America does type of deal. But as we had mentioned in that stream when we did it, like I said, it wasn't overall a bad episode. It just, there was things that I wish they had closed out better, and they had made it a little more overall more complete is what I had with that. But like we were talking about before too, is the fact that with Falcon and Winter Soldier, it was a very slow-paced show to begin with, and they're only doing 6 episodes, so there was a lot of ground that they needed to cover that they didn't. So it was kind of like each episode was good in its own right, but in a whole connective tissue, they didn't complete everything in each episode to, I feel, would have been a more complete story or picture. And that's pretty much what I was getting at when we were talking about that last episode. Is I thought it could have been, that should have been the longest episode of the whole entire series. That should have been like an hour and a half to really get everything in, I felt. And just like when me and Jeff were talking about it, that's, it was basically just, it wasn't a complete picture for me.
Yeah, no, and I when me and Jeff were talking, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. It kind of felt like it felt like the storylines, like the story arcs were kind of just thrown to the endings rather than feeling really complete, like it just felt like everything ended how they wanted it to end, but it didn't feel as earned in a sense, which it is what it is. I don't take like a billion points off for that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't really, it just doesn't leave you with that like, oh wow, that was really cool, like with WandaVision, there was a lot of questions still to be answered, but they're going to answer them. Like it was the start of a bigger thing going on. Whereas this should have been more A to B. It should have felt more like contained in its own section of these events. It should have felt like boom, 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 boom. Whereas WandaVision was like, whoa, where is it going kind of thing. But with this, it should have felt a little more like at the end, we should have been a little more like, oh, wow, that was really cool. But like they finished the actual like action within like a half an hour. Like the first, I don't even think it was like the first half of the episode was like them finishing the mission that took 6 episodes to get to, and it was done within like 20 minutes. And that's when I was like, huh. And then they just did like their closure of the series for another 15-20 minutes, and I was like, this should have felt a little more like epic, like it should have felt a little more like build up and like anticipation, what was going to happen, but we didn't really, there wasn't that feeling. So I didn't hate the series by any stretch. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but it definitely, I don't think it'll, like, as we look on like 5 years from now where they have more shows coming out, I don't think it'll even top like the top 5 shows, like I think it'll be like one of those things where we're like, oh yeah, that was fine,
I think that's very accurate, Perry. I think that's a really good call. I think that series could end up being very well one of the worst of the Disney Plus series when it's all said and done. I mean, just to be realistic,
Yeah.
it was not very it was not climatic, the
Right.
finale. And Perry, what did you think of the way they started off the episode? How they just went right to Falcon as Captain America right off the bat, and he just came right in like right off the bat and threw the shield. And like, were you a little bit let down that they didn't actually show him break out the costume like openly and everything and put it on? And
Yeah, I think it's tough because there's it that didn't really it didn't stop me in my tracks, but at the same time I was like, oh, this should have been a bigger moment. Like this should have felt like a lot bigger
yeah,
of a moment for Sam, uh for his character. That should have been like a big moment, and we should share that with him as the audience members. So I think in that way I did feel a little like that was a missed opportunity. um I don't mind them jumping right into the action, but it definitely, I think, should have started a little before what was going on. Like I think they should have showed like, all right, Sam, it's time to get into action, put on the suit. Like you could say like even some like sort of line like that, like a cliche action line, like it's time to put on the suit. And then you have that moment of him like getting into the suit and having like that, like,
yeah, I would have been okay with that.
cathartic moment. Yeah. So I think it just was like one of those things where I was like, that was missed opportunity. I think that's what the show is just a lot of like missed opportunities. Nothing that like completely derailed it, but enough where by the end of it, you were kind of like, it's just kind of like that. Yeah, that was good. That
Yeah,
was fine.
Cyber, I think. What do you think, Cyber? Do you think they could have built up the introduction of Sam as Captain America differently if they could have paced it differently or like handled it differently than they did?
Well, yeah, most definitely. I mean, like how they did it was kind of like a weak form of how they did it. I feel like because I mean, basically, it was like throughout the first 5 episodes, you got like why did you give the shield away, blah blah blah, etc etc. And then all of a sudden, by the 6th episode, all of a sudden he's in the suit that was made by the Wakandas because his previous jetpack got destroyed, and all of a sudden now he decides he wants to be Captain America. And so like how they like went about that, I feel they could have done it a lot more smoothly. Like they definitely could have built it up better too, as well, instead of just kind of like, okay, all of a sudden it's here.
Yeah.
Like you were
Yeah.
saying, Jeff, about how like at the end of the previous episode, they show him open the case, like, oh, what's he looking at? We know that's his new suit. We know that's his new jetpack. And that stuff. We know that. We could tell. But at the same time, like they didn't. It was just kind of like, oh, open and end credits. There was no action to that. And just like how we were mentioning how the next episode, the final episode, all of a sudden just opens up right to action. Him in the suit battling bad guys. They could have set that up better too. Like they could have led into it, like Perry was saying. You can, even with a cliche thing, like Perry was saying too, like, oh, let's go into action, Captain America, Sam,
Yeah.
Falcon, whatever you want to call it. And they definitely could have done that more smoothly with any of this portion. But yeah, most definitely I think they should have had a way better build up. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I think a lot of people, because I've noticed a lot of chatter since the final episode aired through Twitter, Instagram, and so forth. A lot of people are saying that they think WandaVision was a way better series. Simply the fact that because of how they, that had more episodes too. So that was allowed them to build it up a little better because they did do a better job of that with WandaVision. Most definitely. Like, leading up to her becoming, knowing and finally saying, oh yeah, I know I have these powers and I can use them and et cetera, et cetera. Like, it just was a better lead up, and that's what they should have done with this. But I think because everything got messed up because of the pandemic, because we all know that Winter Soldier was supposed to come out, Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to come out before WandaVision. So that screwed up I think the story for Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I think that's why it was lackluster like it is because they had to scramble to try to put it together to give us these 6 episodes.
That's a good point, Cyber. Maybe like in a way, like maybe WandaVision doomed like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. Like maybe like I mean, Cyber, you know that I mentioned this the last time we talked about when we did our review of the last episode. I said I thought WandaVision was a better show.
Yep.
I did. I think the pacing was better. Perry and I talked about this earlier on the phone, and Perry's the first person that really agrees with me so far, where I really think that like I don't know if I like the whole like concept of the 6 episode series like with these Disney Plus shows. I'm not sure if that's really a good thing. Like I liked the way WandaVision was done in 9 episodes. I thought it was very well paced and very well put together. Like they definitely flushed out the storylines and the arcs better in WandaVision than they did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like you guys have both mentioned. I felt the same way. I felt like the way that they wrapped up the arcs of all the different characters in the show just flatlined for me. Like in the final episode, I felt like they could have done different things with the characters. And like Cyber has mentioned, I thought that the Carly character, like her like whole like the way they wrapped up her story with that final episode did not do her character justice as far as I'm concerned. Like it really didn't do a lot for her. I liked seeing some of her action scenes and stuff like that. You know, that's one thing I did like was seeing the different people taking the super soldier serum and then fighting and everything and seeing their strength and their abilities. But I don't know, Perry, I feel like, as far as like, talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think it's worth it to put the time in right now because we didn't have a chance to talk to you already about this. And really with Loki, like you said, I mean, there's only so much for us to talk about because there's still a lot for it to be revealed yet as far as like what's going to go on. But overall, I feel like, I feel like Cyber, I'm glad you mentioned the WandaVision angle because I don't know how you feel about it now, Cyber. Like, I don't know if you've had more time to think about this. So I don't know if maybe you've changed your mind a little bit with that in terms of, you know, maybe what was the better show or what was better paced. I felt like overall WandaVision did better, even with the way that with the way that they treated their characters. Although the last thing I'll just mention though is that I do think that John Walker looked great in the last episode. I loved him. I thought he was great. When he came in, it really like gave the episode energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel, I most definitely feel that WandaVision was the better series so far of all the MCU TV shows so far. Only for the fact that it had a better continuation, had a better storyline, it had a better completion. Action-wise, Falcon Winter Soldier was the best for action, hands down. The fight sequences that between, you know, John Walker and Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then just the fight sequences between the Flagstaffers and so forth, those were just really epic fight sequences that were really done well. And the action, the CGI, the graphics in the show were really well done too. The only thing was lacking really was the storyline, and like I said, I think that's only because of the switch of the 2 series coming out is the reason why that is. Because they had to change up Falcon the Winter Soldier because of WandaVision coming out first before it was actually supposed to come out. And so, but yeah, in a whole, definitely WandaVision was the better series, simply for the fact too that they had 9 episodes to do it in, versus they only gave Falcon and Winter Soldier 6. So I think if Falcon and Winter Soldier got a couple more episodes, even 4 more, I think it would have had a better completion. Because then they had more time to explain things, to really kind of build up to Sam becoming Captain America. Maybe even give Carly more of a good send-off versus how they did in the series. You know, get like a little bit more reasoning why she thinks the way she does, why she's trying to do this for the world, and, you know, why she is being as diligent about it. And then maybe even give a little more insight into, you know, Winter Soldier, Bucky coming to terms with all the things he did as the Winter Soldier too. I mean, they did a good job of wrapping that up in the final episode, but at the same time, it could have been a little better to see a little bit more of these instances that he had to deal with and to complete. That would have been a little nice too. But yeah, in a whole, definitely WandaVision was the better so far of the series.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I think all three of us are in like agreement that that's the case. Um, but it'll be fun to look forward to like Loki and see where we're in 2.5 months, 2 months after Loki's over, see where we're at with that. Because I think it'll be a tight race after Loki between WandaVision and
What's your
Loki.
prediction, Perry? Do you think Loki will end up being the best show so far for the MCU? And when I ask that question, I also want to mention that I'm bringing up Daredevil, Jessica Jones, The Defenders, Iron
Mm,
Fist, Luke Cage,
yeah,
Agents of Shield, like all, you know what I mean? Like
the
there's been
Punisher,
other,
yeah,
just
the
Peggy Carter,
Punisher, yeah.
the Punisher. So I mean, taking that into consideration that there's all these other shows that did come out. What do you think? Like, do you think Loki looks like it's gonna be like the leading show so far out of the series?
Um, yeah, I think so. With some optimism, I think it'll be up there. I know, like Daredevil season one was awesome. That was a great that was a great season of like superhero TV, like grounded superhero TV. That was just awesome. And that's always up there. And The Punisher was really good too. And Jessica Jones season one was really good too. The second
Yeah,
season was kind of iffy, but um yeah, Iron Fist was not very good as a whole, and Luke Cage was pretty good. I enjoyed watching it. I don't think it was good as Daredevil, but I think it was still pretty good. But I think Loki, the way that this looks, it looks like it's going to be um, like really something that a lot of people are going to be like kind of back and forth on about, like not necessarily liking it, but just being like pulled both ways on what Loki's kind of going to do, which, because that's kind of where we're at right now, is the only things we know are the Loki that's in this show is the Loki right after the first Avengers movie. Like, that's him. It's not the Loki that we saw in Endgame. It's not the Loki that went through all the Thor movies. It's the Loki that got defeated and was going to be like, he was going to be brought to Asgard jail, So it's like, that's the Loki that it is. It's not the Loki that went through the character arc. So it's kind of something brilliant that they were able to do, to completely go through a character story arc and then be able to do it again in a different way.
it is interesting. It's definitely different, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's just brilliance in that way, where it's one of those things where we're gonna just see another like the same character story arc in a different way, and it's kind of cool in that way. And I think that we can kind of move into that, the discussion about kind of what we are looking at for like a Loki synopsis, because right now there isn't really one. Like, you look on IMDb and it just says a new Marvel chapter with Loki at its center, and so there's really nothing there except like um, other people's like predictions in that sense. But um, so the one that I like though is that it's basically that it's Loki has caused a fracture in like dimensional time, to the point where the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, um, has to intervene. Okay, this is the first time we've been introduced to the TVA. They've existed. They're there. They've been dancing around, like keeping track of the different timelines, and everybody in them. Like, just it's like everything. They exist in what's called the null time zone. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Um, but yeah, basically we don't really know what the actual premise, like we don't know the journey. What we're looking at is just Loki being the center of uh, this journey, and he's being brought in by the TVA to fix something. And all we can assume is that he's going to be bouncing around about a bunch of different timelines, a bunch of different points in history. We've seen him as DB Cooper. We've seen him in what looks like Pompeii in some of the trailers, where there's a big explosion, like a volcano erupting, and he's like standing there, like, and the smoke comes. Seen him on different planets. We've seen President Loki and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of cool like little Easter eggs. But at this point, we don't know why he's doing that. We don't. They haven't. There's no explanation. And one of the biggest parts of that is we don't really have an idea of who the villain is unless it's that woman who's in the black, like the black hood and like cloak and stuff, who is it's kind of assumed that she's going to be like the female Loki, and that she'll be the quote unquote villain, whether or not she stays a villain or it's perceived villainy. We'll see. But
That's Sophia Di Martino.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I think she is Lady Loki. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I think it's pretty, like just for people out there who don't know, as we saw before with Loki, in the Thor films, pretending to be Odin, Loki can be anything he wants to be. He can become a female if he wants to. He can become a child. He can become anything he wants to. He that's part of like his power base.
Yep.
And honestly, Perry, I've got a trailer here for Loki. If you want to watch that quick, I'll throw it up.
Sure. Yeah.
Do it. Well, that's cool.
Welcome to the Time Variance Authority. I'm Miss Minutes, and it's my job to catch you up before you stand trial for your crimes. So settle in.
Now, hang on just a minute.
And we'll get you in front of a judge in no time.
Who actually believes this crap? I'm going to see your ticket.
No.
I'm not sure what's going on with that trailer.
Thanks for visiting the TVA.
Hello?
Don't hesitate to let us know how we're doing.
What do you want from me? You put our timeline in chaos.
Well,
I want you to help us fix it. What could possibly go wrong?
sorry, guys.
Trusting Loki is not a good idea.
Here, I'm going to turn it off. I'm not sure. This is my first time, folks, using Restream, so I apologize for that. I've never used this, what is this? I guess a site or software. I've never used this before. This is my first time. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. And I'm sorry about that trailer not popping up and actually playing the way it's supposed to. We can hear the audio, but not the actual video. So hopefully next time we get on here, I'll have gotten this straightened out so that I can be able to pull this kind of stuff up. But Perry, basically, based off of what you talked about earlier with me about what you want, where you wanted to go with the show, how do you want to, what is the first thing you want to bring up that we should talk about with Loki in terms of like the series?
So I think we can like kind of talk about, do we think that there's, what do we think, who do we think the villain is going to be? Like, what kind of show do we think this is going to be? Do we think this is going to be introducing another villain, or do we think this is kind of going to be like more of Loki's journey in that regard? Like what, because the way that it's set up is set up that he's fixing something that he broke. Like he set the timeline into like disarray, and now he is being called upon to help fix it. And so it doesn't set up necessarily a villain that we've seen, but we know that like Kang is attached to like the TVA and time travel, and we know that he's showing up in Ant-Man Quantumania and all that stuff. So I just don't know who, like I don't know enough about, because I don't think it's tough, because Loki is always kind of been the villain in a sense, like he's always been the mischievous one. So it's tough to think of some, like he doesn't have an arch rival, in at least to my knowledge, that would pop up, like a classic Loki villain, like he's not that character. So it's tough. And I think if he does have somebody against him, it's kind of brilliant if it's just another version of him that's fighting against his progress to fix the timeline. And that's why I think a lot of people are talking about female Loki being
I think that's a good call, Perry. I think
Yeah.
you might have spelled it right there. I think that honestly, for me, the villain is probably going to end up being other Lokis. Like other
Yeah.
versions of Loki is probably going to be the main villain because in a way, Loki's going to be like a dual character. He's going to be a good guy and a bad guy. He's an anti-hero. You know, like that's what he does. That's his spiel. Like he's not like he's not Captain America. He's not Steve Rogers. He's just never going to be that person. I really think that it's interesting that Michael Waldron from Rick and Morty is the head writer for the show. I think that's really great. Like Cyber, I wanted to ask you and you too, Perry, like, what do you think about that? Like, what are your thoughts on the fact that like the head writer of this series is the guy from Rick and Morty? Like,
I think it's perfect for this show because think about it. Loki is a very wacky character, and that's what Rick and Morty is all about. It's being wacky, crazy, out into the box type of deal. And that's what they're looking for with Loki because if you read the comic books or you've seen anything about Loki, Loki throughout the comics has been just a wacky character. And he has done some crazy stuff to get, certain people to do certain things. And so bringing in Rick and Morty writer, I think was a way for Disney to kind of give the story a little bit more of that mischief that we're looking for, who Loki is about. And I think that was a clever idea. Also, to go back to what you guys were talking about, like kind of what the villain and the consensus of the series is, to me, from what I've read and what I've seen and what I've seen other people talk about, is I think that this is like Perry was saying, a continuation of Loki's story. I think this is going to give us a kind of like a inside look into how Loki's going to fit in further down the road in other MCU films. I honestly think that's what this is. I think it's kind of like an interlude between him and his next outing in the franchise. Because as far as I know, Tom Hiddleston is going nowhere as Loki anytime soon. And just like with, people thought that, Chris Hemsworth was going to be done with Thor, but look, he's already making Thor 4 and he's in Guardians Volume 3. So I don't see Tom Hiddleston's Loki going anywhere anytime because since we're getting into the dimensions and all that, the multiverse of madness, we can be seeing several different versions of Loki several different times over the years. And also, because the fact that they're already greenlit 2 other seasons of Loki, we know that we're going to be seeing something crazy. So I think going down the line of Kang the Conqueror, I think is a really big and good, clear, concise where they're going with this, because I do believe Loki, they said, is in reference very close to and going to be tied into Quantumania. I've heard that from a few other people I've seen write stuff and stuff like that. I believe that it is going to be in conjunction with the next Ant-Man film. So the fact that, Kang the Conqueror is supposed to be the main villain in Quantumania, I think that's who we're going to end up seeing. I don't think there's going to be a exact villain in the show. Right. I think it's going to be more of a, kind of like what they did with WandaVision, giving this Loki that, took the Tesseract at the end of Endgame, and kind of give him his story to where he ends up. And it's giving the fans what they were looking for, like, where did Loki go after he left an Endgame? I kind of think that's what they're going with this, and that's my thoughts on where they're going to include this into the MCU.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And going back to what Jeff was saying, too, about the head writer of Rick and Morty being on this show as the head writer here, it's like, when you're talking about dimensions and different universes and you're talking about cohesion and somehow being somehow making sense in all the madness, he's one of the best. Like that is such a tough thing to do, is to try to keep everything like crazy but feeling like it's still together in some like loose thread. And so I think that's going to be great. And Cyber, I agree with you. I think this is going to be a very like Loki journey centered thing. Like it's not about the villains. It's not about like kick 'em, punch 'em. Like it's about his journey to getting to the point where he's a different character. He's a different person. Whether or not he probably won't be a hero, but like Jeff was saying, he'll be the anti-hero. He'll be like the guy that's good and bad, and like mix and works in the gray areas. And I think with that point, it's kind of interesting to have him moving into working with the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, um, and kind of bringing them into the fold is really interesting. And for those who don't know who the Time Variance Authority is, they're like a bureaucratic, not necessarily a government, but like they're just a bureaucracy of like an organization that keeps tabs on like all the realities, multiverses, like all that stuff. Um, all the employees within the Time Variance Authority are born and bred specifically to complete their job, like whatever they're assigned to, they're made specifically for that job. Um, and they're all in the comics, they're all the same person. I don't think they'll go down that road, but in the comics, at least, they were cloned from the same genetic stock, so to speak, and but they do recruit people time to time to help with their jobs or whatever their mission. So that's kind of like a basic basic
Yeah.
summary of what they are.
Here,
Jeff,
if you don't mind me stepping in,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was about to say, yeah.
they've recruited people before, like Perry said, in terms of trying to fix time, like these timelines and these variant timelines and everything. And and that's what this Loki is. This is a variant of Loki. That's the way that you would define it. The way the TVA defines it is that he's a variant. He's not the original Loki. The original Loki's dead. And basically, they at one point the TVA actually recruited Kang. One of the versions of Kang, Immortus, which is one of the versions of Kang. They recruited Kang to come in and do the same thing that they're doing with Loki in the series. So there is a comic book basis for this, where the TVA will bring somebody in to fix their own mistakes, basically, in terms of like with Kang, with all his different selves that he's had throughout the universe, like throughout the different dimensions and whatnot.
Right.
Kang's a major player when it comes to going back in time. And like at one point he was, of course, Rama Tut, like during the Egyptian time period, like he was a pharaoh. But I think that one thing that's interesting is that the character of the actress Gugu, I don't know how to pronounce it, Mabatha Raw. He plays Princess Ravonna Renslayer in the series. That's the attractive young short-haired black woman that's in the trailer. And that character, I think, is going to be really interesting because that's Kang's girlfriend from the comics. Like, that's Kang's love interest. So basically, she's a daughter of King Corellius in 40th century Earth. And Kang the Conqueror swore to win her heart in the comics. She ended up jumping in front of Kang and taking a laser blast for him, saving Kang's life, and professed her love to him right before her dying breath. And in the comics, Kang spent a significant amount of time after that incident diverging into multiple Kangs and trying to resurrect Ravonna from death, basically, and that's when he actually goes into limbo, which is, I think, an interesting thing to bring up because Perry already mentioned the null time zone. I think limbo is kind of similar in the way that in the 616 Marvel comic universe, limbo is like a different dimension that exists in the MCU universe. And it'll be interesting to see how they play all this stuff out. But basically, like in the comics, Kang spends a lot of time, trying to revive this character that is the Princess Ravonna. And I think that it's really important. I think it's really interesting. It'll be interesting. I'm really kind of like, I don't know if we're going to see Kang or not. I didn't know, Cyber, that they had greenlit 2 seasons already of Loki beyond the first season. That's the first thing I heard that I heard about that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, all over Facebook, Twitter. It was like shortly after they had started already filming the first season, they already greenlit 2 other seasons because they wanted it to go a full 3 seasons. So I don't know if it's going to go beyond that, but they already were starting to film season 2 amidst the pandemic. So
Yes, I heard that.
It's a go for 2 more seasons at least, because they basically, what the articles were suggesting is that they had a huge story that they wanted to tell, and that it would take about 3 seasons to really kind of make it complete. Because don't forget, we're dealing with, when Loki took the Tesseract at the end of Endgame, he caused a huge rift, like what the sorcerer was talking about, in when she was talking to Bruce, and saying that if you take the stones from these certain points, it's going to cause an off branch. Well, he caused a lot of off branches when he took the Tesseract and it left from the end of Endgame. So there is a lot that they have to cover. And you can't do that in just 1 season. So I think that's the reason why they already greenlit the other 2 seasons, is because they know that they have a lot of branches that they have to fix in order to get it back to where the timeline was correct. And
I think it's exciting. What do you think, Perry, Cyber? What do you guys think about the fact that they are actually going to do multiple seasons with Loki? They're not. I don't know. We talked about this last time, Cyber. I'm not sure that they're going to come back with Falcon and the Winter Soldier again for season 2. Perry, we didn't get a chance to ask you that earlier. What do you think about that?
Not after there's a lot of rumors that a Captain America 4 is coming out. I wouldn't think that they would. If they're going to make movies with these 2 guys, like, I doubt they would do a TV show after doing some movies, like as Captain America and like the Winter Soldier. In regards to Loki, though, I'm excited. I think this is going to, even if this isn't better than WandaVision, I think it's still going to be a lot of fun. And if they start to hone in on like the weirdness of doing multiverse stuff, I think it could be a really fun show that's like that takes on a really creative aspect of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that we haven't seen too much of. Yeah.
Hey, it happens, Perry. It happens to the best of us, buddy. Perry's had a busy day today. He's got a full schedule as usual.
What human doesn't?
Yeah.
Hey, there's some out there that don't.
Yeah.
Jeff, no.
Yeah, well, I have a pretty relaxed lifestyle. So in terms of Mobius, the Owen Wilson character, I want to just mention him because of the trailer. Obviously, he's very he really stands out in the trailer. I love the casting. I think it's great. I love that they cast Owen Wilson in that role. And really, there's no point in getting too in depth with Mobius in terms of who he is in the comics, because it's very complicated. But like Perry already explained, he's one of the the created people who worked at the TVA, and he basically appeared in the Fantastic Four to like prosecute them because of their own time violations. And really, what it makes me think of is a conversation Perry and I had earlier today, where Perry talked about the impact of what the Avengers did to like the timeline and everything and whatnot. Like, they must have affected stuff too. It makes you wonder, like, I don't know. The TVA is not really like a good guy or a bad guy. Like, the TVA is kind of in the middle too. And I think people might not understand that because of the trailer. People might think that the TVA is some like like law enforcement police type situation where they're like respected and they're like, very professional. The Timekeepers have actually tried to break up the Avengers at one point. In the comics, they did. They wanted to try to disband the Avengers. Because of prophecies with the future with the Avengers. And so it'll be interesting to see how that they end up handling the TVA.
Right.
But basically, the Mobius character is, as they explain it on the wiki, he's basically like junior management at the TVA.
Yeah. Yeah, that's he's he's that he's the assistant store manager, or he's assistant to the regional manager. For any Office fans, but yeah, I think it's going to be a really. I think Owen Wilson is like a perfect character for this because um he has that dry wit about him where everything just seems like it's a good, like it's
Yeah.
always going good, he just always has that like, hey, shit's happening, but at least we're alive, like he's just always like, that's his like kind of his his personality and the characters he plays. And I think this will be really funny as him just being like a bureaucratic robot and seeing how he like develops from like just being the guy that goes, hey, shit got fucked up, let's fix it, like, and then moving more towards where he's working more with Loki than the TVA maybe, or maybe he becomes like, he and Loki become like friends halfway through the season, like they're working together, and then all of a sudden they get torn apart, because like Mobius has to like, he has to stick with the TVA. He doesn't have a choice, and it's either like he's getting to the point where he has to choose good versus bad or good versus whatever, or like it's going to be really interesting to see that character being in the forefront with like Loki, because it doesn't seem like he's just going to show up for the first 2 episodes and be like the guy on the phone saying, okay, now time to go to this place, time to go to this place. It looks like he's going to be there for all those things. So it'll be interesting how his character develops too, knowing that he's, like you said, he's just management guy. Like he's just this guy. His job is to make sure that Loki goes and fixes some things for him and then comes home and gets put back in the jail or whatever, like it just seems like that's his job. But it'll be cool to see how his character develops from being that guy to maybe something more, or whether or not he like develops any more like character in that sense.
I think it's brilliant casting. I don't know what you think, Cyber, but I think it's brilliant casting. I think that they picked a perfect actor to work with Tom Hiddleston.
I mean, honestly, I'm not the hugest fan of Owen Wilson. I think he's okay. I mean, majority of the movies he's in, he's always pretty fun to listen to. And he's got that very slacker like vibe feel to him, like Perry was kind of trying to convey. Yeah, and
wow.
And I mean, it's an interesting choice. I wanted to pick Tim myself for the character, but you never know. He could do a good job. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he ends up doing with the character. I don't know much about Mobius, so Owen Wilson could bring it to life for us on the live action scale for the first time. He could do a good job. But in a whole, I'm not a huge fan of Owen Wilson. I could have thought of a few other character actors that could have done the character too, like Tony Shalhoub. I think would have been a good pick for the character. Stanley Tucci. I think those two would have been good for those characters too.
Isn't Stanley Tucci already in the MCU?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was the guy that gave Captain America the serum. He was great.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yep, that's right.
But we've had characters come back and play other characters in the MCU already, so it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the end of the world. But,
right.
But yeah, still, I think like there are other options. I thought could have been a little better, but yeah, definitely it'll be interesting to see what Owen Wilson does with the character.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I think Owen Wilson started his career as like the goofball slacker. He's been in a few recent movies that have been pretty good where he's showed off the dramatic chops. So maybe like a fine wine, he's aging well into his acting,
Wasn't he in the Royal Tenenbaums?
He was.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that was a good movie.
I don't think I ever saw it.
You ever see that before, Perry? No?
No.
Cyber's seen it.
Yeah, I saw it like one time when it first came out, and I barely remember it. I just remember a lot of people saying that on the set, they had to have Bill Murray come in to keep Gene Hackman at bay because he was such a dick on set. So like that kind of ruins the movie for me, knowing that that was going on in the background. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, come on, dude. I know you've been around for many years acting, but it doesn't give you a reason to be a dick, you know?
Is Gene Hackman dead?
No.
He's still alive?
Yeah, he's 91.
Holy shit.
He writes books
Motherfucker
now.
still kicking.
That's
He writes books
crazy.
now. He does novels. Yeah, he's
Wow.
quit acting in 2004, and then ended up starting to write novels, like mystery novels, and that's what he does now.
Wow.
Mm.
Yep.
That's interesting, Cyber. Thanks for dropping that knowledge on us, man.
Yeah. It's a little fact of the day.
Yeah, because
The-
he
the
felt
more you
like
know.
after he made the film Runaway Jury, he felt there was no other like anything for him to do in Hollywood anymore.
That was a pretty good movie too.
Movies. And his last film was actually Welcome to Mooseport with Ray Romano. That was the last actual film he was in. And yeah, he just all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I'm done with making films. I'm gonna retire from that and do something else. And that's why he went into the writing business.
Huh. Interesting. Well,
That's why we got Cyber, right, Perry? Like,
Yeah.
he's the guy. He's on the spot.
yeah. No, that's good stuff. Because like I always consider myself like one of those people that knows all those things, but I'm glad that there's another person that knows these trivia facts. I love learning new things.
Yes. And we've got like a very divergent
Right.
crew in terms of like generations. Like I think Perry, are you a millennial?
I am a millennial on the last year of consideration. I'm 96. I was in 96, and that is the last year that is considered to be a millennial. So I'm right on the cusp, and thank God, because I do not want to be a Gen Zer. Let me tell you. So glad I dodged that bullet. Oh,
Yeah.
They are.
Well, so we're basically all millennials then. I think probably, right?
yeah.
I am not actually.
No, really? Oh, okay,
No,
Cyber.
I'm in between Gen X and millennial. Actually, I'm what's called a Zennial.
Oh,
Wow.
Because we have traits of millennial and we also have traits of Gen Xers, but we're not as optimistic as millennials, but we're also not as crazy as the Gen Xers. So we're our own little subgroup actually from 77 to 82. We are in that gap there. That is this gap of the Zennials as they're called. Because we just like millennials, we are aware of time without technology like cell phones and stuff like that. But then also we are still aware of the times of what Gen Xers had to go through too. So a lot of people that were born in that time frame, they always felt they were out of place, that they didn't feel like they were either a millennial or a Gen Xer. And they actually just recently, within the last 5 years, found this subgroup that they started to research and found out that, yeah, there is that group of people in between those two time frames that are actually a different generation.
I wonder if they're gonna do something similar to like people from like 93 to 97 or something, because like that's I think how a lot of people that like I grew up with, it was like a weird thing because we grew up like right before cell phones were in like the pockets of fifth graders, like younger siblings of my friends had like iPads when they were in like preschool, but I didn't get an iPhone until I was a senior in high school, like, so it is like those weird, like middle generations where it doesn't always like, you don't always mix in with the generation before or after.
Yeah,
but
I would agree.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. What were you going to say, Jeff?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I wanted to mention, before we end up closing this out, I just wanted to mention that we all really like appreciate what I think, honestly, to tell you the truth, just because of how like fresh and like new our like our channel and our podcast are. I just want to let everybody know that we really appreciate all the listeners, all of the people who download us, all the people who subscribe to us. We have, I think like 17 or 18 subscribers on YouTube, which honestly is not very many, but like it's a start, you know? So like, thank you very much to everybody out there who's, you know, helped us do that. I'm sure there's probably like family members and like friends of ours and everything like that and whatnot that are a part of that. So like, thank you to all of you, like that, you know, like we really appreciate you. And it's really nice.
We got to make sure that we also thank the one person that was watching the whole time too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
very
thank
much.
you.
We
Thank you,
genuinely
watcher.
appreciate it.
Streamer.
Appreciate it. If you put your name in the chat, we will shout you out.
Most definitely.
Say
Good call,
hi.
Barry.
But before we close out, the last question, it could be a simple yes or no, or if you have any more thoughts on it. But do either of you guys think that we're going to see the version of Loki that we're going to be seeing in the series in mainline movies, like the mainline stories?
Yes.
Or do you think this is going to be,
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's going to be in Thor 4.
Oh, is he?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh. Well then, I did not see
You amend it and say,
Well,
what about after Thor 4? Like, do you think Loki will pop up after Thor 4, like again in the MCU?
Yeah, I mean, because that's going to come out in what, 2 years, year and a half, next year.
Yeah,
next May.
Where is my brain right now, guys? I think the heat is getting to me. I think the heat's getting to me. It's
That's
all
right.
Yeah,
it's rushing right to the brain.
March is Doctor Strange 2.
Right.
May is Thor 4.
Oh, okay.
Then in
That's awesome.
July is Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, and then in November or December, and I think it's November, is Captain Marvel 2.
Oh, perfect.
The Marvels.
I hate that title.
I know, me too.
Terrible title.
Man, I get it because they're gonna have more than one Captain Marvel in it, or one, another Marvel character in it, and
Miss Marvel, yeah.
Probably what they're going for. But at the same time, it's just like, why not call it like Captain Marvel 2 something like and the Marvels or something like that, like they did with like Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like I love that title. I think that was a great title to go with, and but yeah, that's the scheduling for next year, Perry, and then this year, how the releases are this year, right? July for Black Widow, September for Shang-Chi, and then Eternals November, and then Spider-Man 3 in December. So
it's exciting.
Yeah. Dude, I can't wait for it because I feel like once Black Widow comes out, it's just gonna feel like they're coming out every month. Even though they're like, it's just because it's just gonna like boom, 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 boom. It's gonna be like, bring it in, bring it in. We're gonna be
doing reviews. Like we're actually going to be doing trailer reviews here soon. Like we're actually going to be doing our first trailer reviews. We're going to be doing film reviews when we do Black Widow. It'll be the three of us. We'll be back. We'll be reviewing the Black Widow film after we all go see it in the theater. Hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully the pandemic allows it.
Think about it. It's how they scheduled it out now. How it is. It literally is every other month we're getting a film. Because July, then nothing in August, but then September, and then nothing in October, then November, and then December. So we actually get, we get two in a row, and then the other two we get every other month, which I think is kind of interesting how they decided to lay that out. But at the same time, I still think they should have kept. I think this month they should have just kept Black Widow in its original spot. I think it would have done fine. I mean, look at how good Kong vs. Godzilla is doing. I mean, Spiral just came out this past Friday, and that's doing amazing in theaters because majority of the theaters are back open now. Yep. So, I think Disney, I get why they were trying to change it a little bit, but at the same time, I still think they could have done good if they just stayed with it because so many things were opening back up, and it would have been nice to see Black Widow this month instead of having to wait to July, but
you got to believe
so long.
You got to believe, Cyber Perry, people are not going to want to pay $30 to see Black Widow on Disney Plus compared to going to the theater.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And especially like in New York, it's like the percentage of people that are being vaccinated just keeps like going up and up and up and up. And like we just got the restrictions on the masks like taken down to a big notch down. Like I just got my haircut today and I didn't have to wear a mask because I'm vaccinated. And I was like, I felt naked. Like I felt naked because especially in New York, it was very like you're wearing a mask, So it's nice to get those checks in reality back, you know, like it feels like it's moving forward, and with that comes the movies and the movie theaters. And I saw Kong versus Godzilla in theaters, and that was it was so much fun. Even though the movie is like, the action was so much fun, the sound design was so good, but I mean, obviously the story was like whatever, but it was so much fun to just be back in a theater watching like just a kick-ass like destroy the city movie. Oh, it was so good. It was so much fun. I can't wait for Black Widow.
Well, Barry, I've got to ask you guys a question about like some stuff that I want to see if you guys want to do some reviews on and stuff like that. But do you want to go ahead and we'll call it here because of you wanted to try to make it an hour. So
Yeah.
why don't we go ahead and say our goodbyes and everything, and we'll head out of here.
Yeah. And thank you guys so much. Whoever the person is that tuned in, we thank you so much. And whoever is watching this afterwards, thank you guys so much for checking us out. This is the MCU's Bleeding Edge. For Jeff, for Cyber, I'm Perry. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next video.
Next video.